Hey, what's going on, everybody? You're listening to the SANE Show, the show about nothing and everything. I'm your host, Cliff, and today I have another special guest joining us. I have the Director of A&R at Legacy Recordings, a division of Sony Music Entertainment. He manages the catalogues for the Luther Vandross Estate, the Whitney Houston Estate, Pink, Usher, Britney Spears, Jennifer Lopez, aka J-Lo, Alicia Keys, and many other respected recording artists. Everyone, please welcome Jeffrey James. How you doing, Jeff?
Hey, Cliff. Good, man. Good. Happy to be on.
I'm excited to have you on. I'm
Yeah.
excited to be back. I've been on a little vacay from the show for a little bit, so I'm excited to be recording, and I'm excited to have you on as well. So thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come on the SANE Show today.
My pleasure.
Awesome. So really quick, as I always do, I want to take a moment to shout out all the listeners in all 60 plus countries. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. Thank you guys for continuing to like, share, and subscribe, and continuing to show your support for the SANE Show. It really means a lot, and it has really helped us go a long way and going even further. If you're already listening and you don't already follow us on social media, be sure to check us out on Instagram and Twitter at sane_show. That's sane, SANE_show on Instagram and Twitter. And then you can find us on Facebook, SANE Show. Again, on Facebook, that's SANE Show. So today we're going to have a conversation about keeping the music alive. I'm excited to have that discussion. And then we're also going to have another conversation about A&R. So another very insightful discussion that we're going to have with you, Jeff. Let's go ahead and hop right into it with our first topic, keeping the music alive. In our first conversation, Jeff, I found it to be very insightful, and it was very exciting as well. That's the reason why I couldn't wait to do the show with you, because you play a very big role doing what you do. Something I think about often is the importance of legacy artists in general. It's a part of our culture. It's important that we all know these people who impacted music the way they did. I mean, uh, there's a whole list of artists from Michael Jackson to Prince, Whitney Houston, the Commodores, Lionel Richie, Kenny Rogers, Aerosmith, the Rolling Stones. I mean, the list goes on. And even just thinking about like the old music festivals, right, where all these artists would come together and they would rock out on the stage back in the 70s and the 80s. So there's a lot to be said when it comes to keeping the music alive. So I just want to, go ahead and hand it over to you and get your thoughts on this topic when we talk about keeping the music alive.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I mean, those are all great artists that you mentioned. And my job at Sony Legacy is to help people remember those artists and also keeping it very respectful. Like, we'll start with Luther. This year is Luther's 40th anniversary of his debut album, Never Too Much. I mean, it's the first album he recorded for Epic. And we're playing a campaign this year just to remind people of how great he was. And that entails doing a Spotify playlist or doing social media campaigns to get people to go back and stream his music and just be reminded of how great he was. So that's one aspect. But also there's like artists like, for example, you mentioned Pink, and Pink is actually having the 20th anniversary this year for her album Misunderstood. So
Wow.
so that's a little different approach. But with artists like Pink, they have like remixes, they have live versions. So we try, and a lot of this stuff didn't make it to the DSPs, the digital service providers like the Spotify's and the Tidal and Amazon. So part of my job is just filling those holes and getting that music up so people can also stream and enjoy or remember what it was like when Pink first recorded it. So yeah, it's all about just kind of like engaging with the fan base and engaging with fans and having people discover, because there's always a new fan. There's always someone either listening to music like you, for example. I mean, you made the connection with the smooth jazz version of Never Too Much, but then you went back and listened to the original version. So it's all making it available for people to find when they're looking for it.
Yeah, yeah, I certainly agree. Yeah, I even think about Pink.
Yeah,
I remember the first hit single she released back in, gosh, you said what, 2000?
exactly.
And I
Yep.
just remember,
Yes.
like, riding around in the car with my mother, and hearing the song
Yep.
on top 40 radio. And like, I just feel like such an old head. I'm only 28 years old, but still. And especially I get around these younger people, and I'm listening to what I like to listen to, and I now know how the older generation feels. Like, oh, you don't know about this? Like, that's the good stuff right here. Like, and if it wasn't for this artist, there wouldn't be some of these artists that you listen to today,
Yeah.
because these were the very artists that they were listening to, but you haven't connected the dot. And I think that's one of the coolest things about music, especially, like, my favorite rapper is Kendrick Lamar.
Fantastic.
And
Hmm.
yes, one of the coolest things for me was drawing the connection from him to Tupac and seeing that influence. Tupac is regarded as one of the greatest of all time, and Kendrick Lamar is regarded as one of the greatest in his generation. In my opinion, he is the greatest of our generation. But to see that, right, and especially, for him to be paying homage to the great rappers that came before him, I like seeing that across genres. You see these younger rock bands, teaming up with these older rock bands, and paying homage, paying respect, because at the end of the day, like, understanding that these older musicians paved the way for the musicians today to be able to do what they're doing. And so that's why this topic to me is very important as well, keeping the music alive, because we have to, as not only as fans, but artists as well, have to recognize the contribution that these legacy artists made to not only music, but to the overall culture. And and I'll hand it back to you, but it also did my heart joy listening to Tiana Taylor's album that came out last summer, and how it was full of samples of hit 90s R&B songs,
Yeah.
and having Erica Badu on the album, having Lauryn Hill on the album. Like, it's just pure dopeness. So I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, no, I'm loving this because the connection is there. Like I'll even go, a step further back. Like for me, Tupac was my Kendrick Lamar, which I'm so glad you said that. But before Tupac, we had like Chuck D from Public Enemy, and then Run DMC, which is on Profile Records and is now part of the whole Sony Legacy group. I mean, for me, that was me growing up, was Run DMC and that whole Curtis Blow. So there's all these big connections because it's like one each rapper is building upon what came before them, which is good, and I'm seeing that they're recognizing it. I think Jay-Z recognizes that too, and so it's so important to
Yeah.
like understand where the music came from, where your influence is from, because you're just building upon that, and I think that's what makes music and the art form so great, because it's so ever changing, because you're always building in a new perspective. I mean, there's stuff like, honestly, I didn't get the whole whisper rap, but I can appreciate the art form, and there was a time period where I can't remember the type of mumble rap and all that, but it's all a part of expression. But it's so important to understand where all the music forms come from, and what people did to get where they're going. How people can influence their own style, but also understand where it came from. So yeah, I'm so like in tune with what you're saying.
Yeah. And even with, I think about with certain songs, say, the Electric Slide, right? Or let's say the quote unquote cookout music.
The barbecue, yes, bro.
Right.
Barbecue and here and barber salon, wait, barbecue and then the barber salon. Yeah, man, go
Yeah,
for it. I love this. Yeah.
exactly. And one of the things, my generation jokes about now is,
Yeah.
the song Swag Surfing, and how like, because you know, especially like you go to like HBCUs and you see when they play the swag surfing song, like everybody's locked shoulder to shoulder, and then they're going back and forth rocking, and it's like that became
Yeah.
the anthem of my
Oh, I
generation.
love it. Love it.
So I think about when I have children and being able, certain songs come on, like, oh, I gotta tell y'all about this. Like, I could tell you some stories, and understanding, getting them to understand the impact of the music, right? It's not just a song. It contributed to a movement or to a cause, much like how Kendrick Lamar's song "We Gonna Be All Right" or "All Right" is the name of the song, but during the Black Lives Matter movement and people chanting "We gonna be all right," those kinds of things, right? It's these songs are truly a part of history. You like how we just had the Super Bowl, and everyone brings up Whitney Houston
Mm.
national anthem,
Yep.
right? Like those moments, it's bigger than the music. These are things that are a part of history in general.
Yeah. Exactly. And that performance had an anniversary this year too. So, yeah, I mean, and that comes up. It's billed as one of the all-time at least top 10 or number one version of the Star Spangled Banner. I mean, we had a few. Marvin
Yeah,
Gaye also had a great version. I mean, even J Hud, Jennifer Hudson, her version of it too. So yeah, I mean, those moments. I mean, it just resonates with everyone, and it's historic. So yeah, that's good point.
yeah, yeah. What do they say? Momentous occasion.
Exactly, exactly.
All right, we're back. Now we're going to have a conversation about A&Rs. So obviously, many of us, when we think about A&Rs, we think about what I now think of as front-facing A&Rs. So the A&Rs that are going out there scouting and recruiting and signing new and upcoming artists to these labels. Then there's people like you, Jeff, the other side of being an A&R, in which I didn't even think of or wasn't even aware of until I met you,
Yeah.
and like just blew my mind with all this insight. And I think it's really awesome. And I didn't know that there were people, A&Rs really, that manage legacy music catalogs for
Yep.
legacy recording artists.
Yep.
And I definitely wanted to use this segment to give you the opportunity to educate the listeners on that side of it and shed some light on, because on the surface it looks like just pushing old music, quote unquote old music, and
Yeah.
just keeping it going. But it's a lot deeper than that, especially when you talk about dealing with artists like a Whitney Houston, like a Luther Vandross. Like that's no task to be taken lightly. It's like just like with artists like Michael Jackson and Prince, right? You don't just put those caliber catalogs in anybody's hand. You got to put them in the right hand because they have to be managed appropriately. And if you ask me, I don't think it changes from when the artist was around or not. So you go ahead.
Oh, bro. I mean, no, it's all good. And the legacy recordings were started because we wanted to try, or the division wanted to try to kind of reimagine this older catalog of this catalog of artists, and not put it in the bucket of that's old music, because you're not alone in categorizing it that way, because that's how it was, and that's what we've been trying to change. But let me start with A&R is artist and repertoire. That's where the term A&R comes from, and it was where the talent scout at the label would go and find an artist and match them up with repertoire that they can perform. This is back in the day where, singer-songwriters, when people, didn't, if an artist didn't write their own songs, this talent scout or your A&R person would set you up with the songs for you to record and perform. So that's where the term A&R comes from. So fast forward to what's happening now is everybody is familiar with the front facing, which I love that term, the front facing A&R person at a label, where they go out and they find new talent, they sign it to the label, and that artist will record X amount of records, or albums, I should say, or recordings for the label for an advance or whatever, that part. But what I do is, which I love, is it's the back end. If you want to say that, it's basically when an artist, for example, Alicia Keys, her album Songs in A Minor is turning 20 this year. So, but Alicia has recorded several albums after her debut, and the idea of the front-facing A&R, which is RCA, their main focus is Alicia's new material. That's what they want to help the artists, and that's their main focus. But she has all this the back catalog, which I maintain, either making sure that the information or the music is on Spotify, Pandora, Tidal, or especially in the event of this 20th anniversary of her album, we want to revisit the album, but also maybe add a remix or add a recording that didn't make the album. So those that's my approach to this stuff. So I am with the repertoire, which I just mentioned, like a new song or maybe a song that didn't make the album, and match it with Alicia Keys because she's still involved. So I'm still working with the artist and still working with her catalog. So it's just basically the material that comes. The easiest way to understand is anything after the last album is catalog, and that's what I handle. Like, for example, just changing artist, Chris Brown, one of the biggest streaming artists that we have on RCA. He's a catalog artist until he records his new album, and the same with Pink. But yeah, so those types of situations, those types of artists is what I deal with, and then on the other end, I deal with Whitney Houston Estate. Unfortunately, Whitney's no longer with us, but I manage her music with the estate and their vision of what they would like the artist or what the music or what program you want to put out there is very important. And I take their guidance and their advice, and we have conferences all the time about how can we do this to represent Whitney. So, as Whitney's not here, the artist is now the estate. So it gets really involved, but I'm still in it daily, and it's a conversation I have with all different types of artists or artist estates.
So I'm curious, because one of the things I think about, like Michael Jackson had an album that released a few years ago, unreleased music.
Yep.
That was apparently recorded, and it never had been released. And Michael Jackson's been gone for a while now. Mm-hmm. How is it dealing with that kind of situation where an artist passes away, it's discovered that they have all this unreleased music, and you have people who say, no, leave it, and we have people who say, release it.
Yep. It's all about respect. We always come from the angle of respecting the artist. And then the second thing is there a real story to be told? Because, truth be told, is that sometimes music that's unreleased, there's a reason for it. It just either it was incomplete or it was just not that good. But if the goal is to present it in a way like, look, surrounded by the time period, you can take references of when it was recorded and maybe what the artist was trying to do with that. So going back to your question, when it comes to unreleased material, we want to work with either the estate or the artist representative, and all our ideas are fleshed out between the both of us, and we don't want to ever make it seem like we're doing something for the wrong reasons. So so it all, like I said in the beginning, it goes back to respect and observing and reviewing the material, and to see like what can we do surrounding this in conjunction with, of course, their catalog.
That's a great way to approach it. And I remember you mentioned that in our previous conversation, and I just love the fact that you come from an approach and a place of respect. Because that is very important, obviously, when dealing with artists and their catalog, and wanting to respect their legacy and honor their legacy. And the best way you can do that is making sure that, at the end of the day, whatever you do, you're respecting the artist's legacy. So kudos to you on that one.
100%, man. It really is. I mean, and of course you're going to have people, you see it all the time on social media and fan posts, like, let them rest, or they're taking advantage of them. But there's another part of people that are really curious to see what the artist was doing at that time, and like get another sense of music from that time period. Like, I love discovering new music or unheard music, because it just thinks like, okay, there's different reasons why maybe this song didn't make it. I mean, it's a lot easier when you take music from the 80s or even the 70s, because the album, the vinyl album, could only hold but so much. Even CDs, you could only hold but 80 minutes of music. So sometimes songs didn't make it on certain albums because of time. And doesn't mean it wasn't any good, but you gotta cut your choices, and then that's what was presented as the final release.
I learned something new.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
All right, we're back now for the interview. So, Jeff, I'm going to go ahead and fire off with some questions so that the listeners and I can learn more about you, the things that you do, and all the fun things that go along with that. So, to start with my first question, a lot of people, when they envision themselves in entertainment, want to be the person in the spotlight, the celebrity performer. You say you knew early on that you weren't a naturally gifted musician, but that didn't deter you from being in the industry. What would you say to young artists who think the only way to achieve success in the industry is to achieve fame?
Wow. I love that. No, my advice to anyone that wants to get into music is to get into music get into the music industry because you love what you're doing. You're passionate. I mean, it's not about just the being the fame or the in the spotlight. Because think about it. I mean, how many Michael Jordans do we know? I mean, not to use that as an example, because I don't want to crush anyone's dreams, but the chances of like being a superstar are so small. I mean, it's just because of the law of averages, and there's only a certain amount of time and certain amount of artists that actually break through. I mean, and I just think you have to be, whatever you do in music or trying to get in the industry, you got to lead with passion, and you got to lead with understanding the roles of different. Understanding the roles of what you want to do or what you can contribute and what your strengths are. I mean, for me, my strength is realizing that I wasn't a good musician, but I also loved that. What I loved about the music industry was the physicality of it, like looking through my father's albums and reading liner notes and reading even reading the label of like who the writers were of the songs and that kind of stuff. Because then it clicked, and to me it clicked, and I thought there must be some way, a business that actually handles this part of the music making. I mean, there's someone that handles artwork. There's someone that handles the copy that you're reading. There's someone that does all the back end stuff. There's so many different parts of the music industry that require people that may not sing. I mean, there's accounting. I wasn't really good with numbers either, but there's an accounting of finance. I mean, it takes a village to run a company. It really does, and especially now, if giving any advice to anyone listening, especially now, there's so many different opportunities, especially with social media, understanding content and YouTube and video making. Video making now is integral to music, because you got to have the visuals with the audio, and all that. There's so much more than the being an artist. I'd like to end, or like to say this, that you don't want to get into the music industry to become famous. Becoming famous is a product of your hard work. That's what I really believe in. It's a byproduct. I mean, you've got to be passionate what you believe, and you go for it. And then from there, the fame should come to you. But then, I mean, that's how I see it. So yeah, I'll end it there.
No, that's a great response, and I appreciate the honesty on that one.
Yeah.
So yeah. So my next question to you, you work with music that goes back decades, allowing you some insight into the taste changing over time. When new music comes out, are you able to distinguish what's timeless and what isn't?
I love that. Oh my God. Anytime I listen to new music, that goes through my mind. It really does. Will this be relevant in the future, or and I try to put everything in perspective, because there's so many new ways to record music. I mean, I just watched on Apple TV the Billie Eilish documentary that she put out, and she and her brother record their music in their bedroom. I don't know what they do post that, but that's where the basic music starts. And I just find that if you were to tell me that most artists record in a bedroom, I wouldn't have ever believed it. So, but going back to your question, timeless. For me, it goes to the vocal. It also goes to the lyrics of a particular song that makes it timeless, that makes it relevant. I mean, there's one song out now, which I think is going to do really good at the Grammys, which is right now so relevant, is that JP Sax song. If the world was ending, I'd come over. Would you come over now? It's just because, with COVID, it feels that's how everyone felt. And I think looking back, when we look back at that song, we're going to remember what COVID was and how it made us all feel. So yeah, it's a feeling, man. But yeah, I go through that all the time with new music. I always try to, and it's just it's just one of those things that I play in my head. Like, is this a song I should pay attention to now, and will I care about it in 10, 15 years?
Next question. You grew up with records and tapes, and now music is all the way to streaming across various platforms and Bluetooth earphones.
Yeah.
What is your favorite way to listen to music, and why?
You know what? Well, now, which I've avoided it for so long, it's definitely streaming, Spotify. But I work at my desk a lot, so I do put all my CDs, or what I want to listen to, into my iTunes player, and I'll listen to that, and I'll listen to it while I'm working. It's a mixture. It's definitely, when I'm at home, it's iTunes through my headphones. I also have a turntable, so I listen to some music, but that's mostly for the job when I listen to test pressings. And yeah. So I have a turntable, but I mostly listen to my stuff on my computer now. It keeps everything all in one place, and I have basically my whole library is on a hard drive. So I do that. But when I'm running or when I'm outside, I'll listen to music on Spotify. That's my go-to, Spotify or iTunes Music.
That's
Apple
cool.
Music, I should say. I didn't say Apple. Yeah, I meant to say Apple Music, but they keep on changing it. But yeah.
Oh, good. Briefly, you did work outside of the industry, and oftentimes people trying to make it in the industry aren't always able to stay with it. What about music in the industry had enough draw that when you were ready to recommit, you followed through?
Wow, man. You're reading my story, my life. Quickly, it all began, because growing up with my dad and his record collection. So I had a passion for music. My parents were, my dad was a banker, a private banker, and my mom was a nurse. So very hardworking, kind of 9 to 5 jobs. And when I told them I want to get in the music industry, they thought I was crazy, because I was never going to be a suit and tie type of person. So
Yeah.
so I knew that, but I went through college. I did my internships at 3 labels. I did my internships at Chrysalis Records, Polygram, and Mercury. Mercury and Polygram are under Universal now, and Chrysalis is now Imprint through EMI Universal. So they're not around. So when I graduated in '91, I graduated in a recession, and there was no jobs. So that was a little heartbreaking. But I had to make a living, and I had to pay back student loans. So I gave up my really pursuit of the music industry, but I didn't give it up fully. I became a freelance journalist. I did a lot of music reviews, and I read a lot of periodicals, and I made sure to read Billboard and keep involved in the music. So when I got my foot back in, I could still say I was part of the industry, or I can put that in my resume that I've been as a freelance writer. But I worked on Wall Street. I worked on Wall Street as an odd lot share broker. I don't know if they even have that position anymore, but basically I was the guy on the telephone kind of trying to buy back shares from people that had anything less than 10 shares. Most of the time it was because it was full of nostalgia. Like a person would have 10 shares of McDonald's because they wanted to give that to their son, or 10 shares of we'll say Blockbuster, and it would cost more for these companies to send the information or syllabuses or what's the word information about the stocks, and it would cost the dividend checks. It would cost the companies more to mail it out than it was really worth. So that was my job, and I did that 9 to 5. I was at a point where I was going to take the Series 7 exam to be a Wall Street broker, even though it was against my spirit. But I didn't know what else to do because there was no jobs. And then I got the call because I was still sending out my resume to apply for the mailroom in Profile Records, and that was my first gig. So that's where I had the choice: do I pursue a job that I don't love, but I could be making a lot of money in, which is the stock market, or do I pursue my passion and swallow my pride a little bit and say I work in the mailroom? And I went with my passion, yeah, so it's just those little opportunities. I mean, you all have choices. Oprah calls it whispers. You got to listen to it, and you got to listen to that inner voice. And I went with my gut, and that's why I took the less paying job in the mailroom. And so and that's where it led me to where I am now.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Just listening to that always just reminds me of really committing yourself to what it is you're passionate about. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And, thank you again for taking time out of your schedule to come on the SANE Show. I really appreciate it. Really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for offering the insight that you offered on the show as well. Definitely a lot of takeaways for myself, and I know the listeners will get a lot out of it too. So thank you so much, Jeff, for coming on the SANE Show.
Oh, my pleasure, man. I really do. And, I said it before, if I can give just one person a little different perspective of the industry, that's all. It's worth it to me. It's a tough industry, bro. It really is. And I'm stressed, but I do love it because it's my chosen, and it's not just a job to me. It's a career. I spend a lot of time, working on weekends and working, during the week, but if you remain passionate and you remain that hard drive, the money will come and opportunities will open. And one of my favorite sayings is if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So just stay ready, man, and just be ready to go out there. You know what I'm saying?
Is a fact.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you again for sharing all of that. I really appreciate it. Definitely going to have you back on the show.
I would love to. So. Anytime. Give me a call, man. Shoot me an email. It's all good.
Will do. And thank you again, listeners, for continuing to like, share, subscribe, and spread the word about the SANE Show. Really appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And remember, you guys are listening to the SANE Show, the show about nothing and everything. And until next time, we're out.